All right, great. Thanks for taking the time. Can you introduce yourself and talk about the position and role that you're within right now?
Sure. So I'm Mike Mulfelder. I'm a fractional head of sales. I have a business called Calm Ocean Sales. Started it a little over 2 years ago after I became one of the casualties in tech. Not an unfortunate thing,
Mm-hmm.
not a surprise either. Saw it coming and had planned to offer this type of a consultancy. Just didn't plan on it when it happened in my life, but it's been great. And
Awesome.
so I've been doing that for 2 years. And then about 6 weeks ago, kind of repositioned the business, really focusing a little bit more on the private equity and investor space, which we can talk about, and uh, added a product offering called the Go-to-Market Lab,
Mm.
which allows for more flexibility, a little bit more ad hoc service than just hey, I need a full-time or an interim head of sales.
Got it. And then what were some of the struggles you had getting to the point to identify your market and start generating leads and sales around it?
So I was really fortunate, Jason. Knew the market that I wanted to serve, and I had clients almost immediately. What ended up happening, and the reason the Go-to-Market Lab came to be was I my contracts kind of ended in August, September of last year. There was a few things. One was there's been a flood of fractional folks in the space, so
Mm.
that creates some noise, and that's not a bad thing, by the way. And then I had admittedly not been doing a lot of prospecting. So it takes, like anything else, takes time to get that engine going again. Now, it also afforded me the opportunity to experiment with marketing and doing some cold outbound. And what I found was it doesn't, for what I do, it doesn't work really well
Mm.
because you're looking for the needle in the haystack. You're looking for the founder-led business where the head of sales has just left or isn't getting the job done, and where the founder is running sales and has reached the point where they know that they shouldn't be doing it anymore. And so that was
Mm.
just really, really swimming upstream. So I thought, really gave some thought to it, and thanks to mentors, some podcasts, I said, well, the market that I want to serve, it's twofold. One is, uh, and this sounds egotistical, but I'm a low ego guy. I want to help as many salespeople as I possibly can to get better at selling
Mm.
before I retire. And I still have, 5, 6 years before that's going to happen anyway. But we're kind of into the second generation of salespeople who haven't really been taught how to sell.
Mm.
So I want to impact that positively as much as I can. And then the second is in terms of the market that I serve. If you think about the investor community, PE firm as an example, let's say they have 30 companies in their portfolio. Just pick a number. At any point in time in the portfolio, they have multiple go-to-market challenges. They have one business where they're trying to build an expansion engine. They have another one where they're trying to build strategic accounts. They have another one where they're trying to figure out the MQL to SQL qualification discovery process. And then there's another one where they've got a VP of sales or a head of sales that is either leaving of their own volition or being pushed out of the company.
Mm.
So it's kind of like the portfolio is a living organism. So my hypothesis was that in the investor community that there would be an appetite for someone like myself as a preferred provider, and that's so I kind of re-aimed the business, and that's had some pretty positive results so far.
Nice. And how are you finding these people?
Through my network.
Your network?
So I'm involved in different networks, whether it's Pavilion Network, Fractionals United, of Genius. There's a bunch of them
Mm-hmm.
out there. And what is the most powerful thing is our own network, right? We're known entities at a certain point, and this goes to the problem with the noise in the space, and that too often what we're seeing are folks that put the fractional title out there, and really all they're doing is they're trying to bridge time until they find a full-time role. And worse is and that's fine, by the way.
Hmm.
I have no issue with that. I mean, if somebody came along and offered me some crazy great operational role, I would, I would consider that.
Hmm.
But what we're seeing instead is kind of a title inflation of people claiming to be a fractional head of marketing or a fractional head of
Mm.
sales, and they haven't done the job. So that becomes problematic for others. I mean, I've been in sales for B2B sales for 35 years. I've been in sales leadership for 20. So, I think I have some credibility and a pretty good network.
A little bit of
Now,
background.
yeah. And now the other thing that's I find is required is lots of content. So I write and publish a lot on LinkedIn.
Mm.
I write. I'm one of the contributing editors, founding editors of Revenue Magazine, which is an online magazine.
Hmm.
So, the more content that you put out there, the more name recognition that you have, like
Yeah.
anything else, the
Become
more
the
value.
authoritative.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. It's interesting you say that because I feel that way with my marketing agency. It's like there's so many people out there that say they could do this. And people are like, oh, my buddy's kid who's in college is taking a class, and I'm gonna have them do our digital marketing. And you're like, what are you doing? Like, or I'm gonna hire this, outsource this to the Philippines for $250 for the month. And you're like, okay, you tell me, I'll reach back out in a couple months. You tell me how that's going.
yeah,
Right. And it's like all these people say they're experts. They have no experience. They have no background. Kids coming out with these videos and saying that they'll get you to 250 mil, within 90 days. And
yeah.
then you read the fine print, and it's like, this never happens. So they don't get sued.
There, yeah. You have to at a certain point. We're not there yet.
Mm.
Just kind of wash out some of the dreamers. I mean, a lot of this has to do with AI.
Hmm.
People using AI, and I'm a proponent. I'm an investor in an AI company. But I think there are a lot of folks who are putting a lot of credence in AI without understanding actually how it works or the ramifications.
Yeah. Yeah. Now that, the fake job seekers are flooding the market, and
Yeah, I
they're
just heard
developing
about that.
these tools to recognize the face on the profile to see if it's a real person. Looking
Yeah.
at these pictures, they look real to me. So it's amazing that they can identify who's
Mhm.
not real, and fake resumes coming out of different countries. It's
Yeah.
it's odd. It's
Yeah.
odd that that's happening.
Yeah. I don't really know what the end game is on that, to be honest with you. I know I've had situations. One situation where somebody showed up for an interview who was clearly not the same person who had applied.
Wow.
And another one where it wasn't. I was the company I was working for, but the person who showed up for the first day of the job was not the same person we'd interviewed.
That's weird. What did you do? Just turn them around? Thank you for
Yeah.
your time.
Yep. We shut off their access right away.
Wow.
All
That's
right.
odd. It's weird stuff that goes on. That weird stuff that never really has happened before like that. Because, used to be you had to apply for a job, you'd show up in person, do the interview. But
Right.
now you can still do a virtual meeting, but it would be odd that someone else would show up in your place from the virtual meeting.
Yeah. People think, listen, there's so many scams out there in different ways, and that's as old as time. And
Yeah,
if the same people would just apply their energy to doing good things, they wouldn't need to run scams.
right. Yeah. Yeah, I enjoy watching those videos of the hackers catching scammers.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like, oh, is this you? And they show their image, and then they can see the video feed, and then they start pulling out all the computers and running around, and then the cops show up. Those are fun to watch. Um,
Yeah. I mean, listen, there's a whole bunch of challenges right now from a
yeah.
recruiting standpoint. Yeah, it's not about scamming. Just like the problem right now is you've got in tech, whatever the number is, 100,000, 150,000 people that have been pushed out of jobs in the last couple of years. Everybody's fighting for position, and there's just not a lot of. I mean,
Applying to man.
yeah, the quality of candidate isn't great.
Hmm.
So,
Well, how would you weed through all these candidates to find the one who's actually someone who might be a right fit?
well, there's a couple of things. One is, and I've counseled people on this, don't apply for a job if you're not qualified for it.
Hmm.
Just don't. If the job says that you need 5 years of financial services and you have not done 5 years of financial services, don't apply. And then be prepared in the interview to be asked about your experience.
It's all
And
pretty logical.
it is all pretty logical, right? Now I don't want to let the cat out of the bag here, but I've got questions that are very specific to a candidate
Hmm.
when I interview.
Your
And
vetting process, yeah.
yeah, because I want to know, the things that I'm hiring for today are um, uh, grit, resilience, and research.
How do you quantify grit? How would someone answer that?
It comes out in the conversation
Yeah.
generally. There is a red flag. This I understand people change jobs quickly. I've had my short
Hmm.
stops as well. We all have. But when I see somebody who has had a series of 1 year, 16-month stops, I'm going to drill into that very hard.
Hmm.
Because the problem, and I've written about this several times, and I know that people want to say it's a generational thing. It's not. The problem is if you're always doing 1 year and 16-month stops, that you become a risk
Hmm.
to a hiring executive because it takes anywhere from 6 to 12 months to onboard an AE.
Hmm.
So if you're only staying for 12 to 16
Uh,
months, I'm losing money. So
right.
I'm not going to hire that person. I can't risk it. I will go and find the person who is going to be with me for a few years. And what I'm looking for in that grit is if somebody has stayed with a company, if had a couple of jobs that are 3 to 5 year stints, you can't stay at a company for 3 or 5 years without putting up with a lot of stuff. Because
Right.
things change. You get new bosses,
Yeah.
issues, product changes, market changes, etc. So if you're willing to stick it out and keep fighting for 3 to 5 years, that's a pretty good bet. But
That's a good point. Yeah.
if it's every year, the first thing I'm wondering is when the going gets tough, do you get going?
I'm wondering what their performance was as well too, if they're there for that short, especially within an AE role, right? Because if
That's
you're
it.
generating revenue, you should just be getting ramped up by that year point and
That's
having
right.
your basis established.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the other thing which becomes very difficult to diagnose, which is um, like somewhere 8 to 10 months in, if they're not performing, that's when they start talking about being put on a performance improvement plan
Hmm.
and they leave. Or they get put on a PIP and then they leave. They don't satisfy the PIP. So you just have to be really, really careful as a um, when you're thinking about leaving a job after a year, you got to really think long and hard about whether that's the right thing to do.
Hmm.
Because you're gonna like I said, there are people who have short stints, and I've hired people with short stints, and that's fine. But when it's a pattern, at a certain point, you have the someone like myself looks at it and says, "Is it a you problem?" And I don't want a you problem. I got
Yeah.
problems.
We all do. I can't fix your problems. I got to
Right.
fix my problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's interesting you say that, especially to go on the sales side. Then I manage sales teams and trying to find the right people to get them in position. You get them all trained up, and the next thing you know, one of the things I would find is like I get these guys all trained up at a certain company, and the company wouldn't pay a lot, so then they get all this great training that we developed, and then they would go to a different company, and then now they're having success over at this other company. But that's a different problem. When you're dealing with wages and proper compensation packages for sales teams.
That's a different situation. And again, I can understand somebody making a move once, maybe twice when
Hmm.
that happens. If it's five
Yeah.
times, that
Yeah.
that calls into question your judgment because you should be learning to ask questions after you get burned twice.
Especially as a sales representative, you should be digging into
Yeah,
these things.
yeah,
I've had sales coaches, and it's been interesting the feedback that they always give because they're trying to teach teams how to establish a relationship with someone and learn the type of personality is. So if people have always conflicts with the people that are managing them or the company, they're not identifying that personality and being able to work with it too as well. So those short
Yeah.
stints you could see. Yeah, so I see how you're doing the grit thing. I was wondering like, because like are they going to stick through it? Like how would you look at that? So yeah, like in the AE role specifically, I saw that's applicable in what you're looking at. So and what then you get your sales team. So like how are these companies, are they driving, are you seeing them scale their revenue, or how are they driving leads for these sales teams so that way they can have success?
So it varies by client.
Hmm.
So I'll tell you here are the themes, if you will. Um, One theme is the founder-led business where the founder doesn't isn't really solid with sales,
Hmm.
and they're trying to be or have been trying to be solid as salespeople, and they should have gotten help a long time ago. So we're trying to fix that.
Hmm.
Um, but the other and more critical and continuing theme, not in every client, so I want to be careful, but it's true across industry. It's not, this isn't just something that Mike Mulfelder's found in his clients, is we have not taught salespeople how to qualify a deal. And the way that ends up showing up is in deals that don't close. They sit in the pipeline forever. They get stuck. They get ghosted. You see, loss codes that are, like almost silly loss codes. Some weak product reason or lost on price. I mean, we lose on price. I get that,
Hmm.
but generally losing on prices it works its way back to qualification. Like you probably shouldn't have been in the deal at all. But we have to teach people how to qualify and how to do proper discovery. Because qualification tells me, should I spend time? Should we be
Yeah.
spending together? It's not even about should I be spending time with you, but should we be spending time together because your time is valuable too.
Yeah.
But then the second part is once we've established that we're going to spend time together, can I actually solve your problem?
Do you have a quick way to find out those two answers?
I do on the qualification.
Hmm.
So there's a series of questions that I developed, I guess, about 8 or 9 years ago
Hmm.
that I've deployed across several companies. They're totally portable. It works. We don't ask budget because budget is a silly question to ask somebody in most
Hmm.
cases. 'Cause if I ask you, your
What's your
budget,
budget?
one of two things is going to happen. You're either going to
Ten
say,
dollars.
yeah, I'm not allowed to tell you that, or
Yeah.
yeah, I'm going to give you some bogus number because if I tell you I have $1 million, Mike's coming in at 900,000. I know
Hmm.
you.
Right.
Um, but if we test a couple of things, for the first and most important is there a catalyst or a trigger?
Hmm.
Meaning, what happened? So we've been taught to sell to pain. That's a false flag. People don't buy because of pain. No. I'm in a sling. I had shoulder surgery two
Yeah.
days. I hurt myself back in August. I finally went to the doctor in March. I was in pain for a long time. And then it got to where it was untenable and I had to do something about it.
Hmm.
That's when there's change, right? And a business is no different. A business can be in pain for a long time and maybe never do anything about it. But when it moves to weakness or an untenable situation, meaning something broke or is about to break, that's when something's going to be purchased.
When the fire drill happens.
Yeah. So the first question is, hey, Jason, what happened that you reached out to Calm Ocean Sales? Not the business problem. It's like the actual trigger.
Hmm.
And what we hear are things like, oh, well, like so I sold integration for years.
Hmm.
My teams did, and we would hear things like, oh, well, we found out that Salesforce wasn't reconciling to NetSuite,
Hmm.
and our books were off, and the CFO lost his mind and said, if you don't fix it, I'm going to fire you.
Hmm.
Boop. There's my catalyst.
Yep. There's your pain point.
Yeah. And so then the next question is, okay, well, so who owns this project? Well, the CFO owns the project. I'm not, and then, people get defensive. Oh, you can't make, I can't tell you that. It's like, I'm not calling the person,
Yeah.
but what I want to know is, especially in this day and age, in this economy, are you being directed by an executive to fix the problem?
Mm. Yeah.
Because
Who's the
if
stakeholders? Yeah.
Because if there's not a trigger and there isn't somebody at the very highest level of the organization or a high level of the organization demanding that it be fixed, it's not getting fixed.
Yeah.
And so back to the budget thing, if I have a catalyst, if I have a senior executive, third question is when do you need to be in production? Not when are you buying,
Hmm.
when do you need to be in production? And then the fourth question is, well, tell me more about like why are we doing this now? So that we like what's we get into the business problem,
Hmm.
that tells me if there's budget. Because
Mm.
no senior executive right now, nobody has time, right? So
Yeah.
I don't have time to look at a bunch of proposals because you went and looked at, five fractional sales leaders.
Hmm.
I told you go get us a fractional sales leader,
Right. Yeah.
right? And now you come back with a proposal. And conversely, and one of the things that we learned in the integration space is we're trying to diagnose in the qualification stage, is this an actual business problem that has to be solved, or is it personal pain? Meaning, I just don't like doing this part of my job, so I'm going to go find another solution.
Hmm.
I'm going to bring that to my boss or the CFO and say, "Ha, I found this new proposal generation solution for only $30,000 a year." And the CFO is going to say, "I didn't tell you that I needed that." So we want to know that in qualification, because if you don't, what ends up happening is you get down to the proposal stage, it's in your pipeline, it's in your forecast, and then the deal stalls.
Mm.
It gets lost. And I said, where I said we see the loss code lost to price. We didn't lose to price. We lost to the CFO saying there's no business case for this. And
Yeah.
there was never a business case for it.
Yeah. No,
So,
yeah, it makes sense.
and this is like, so let me back up a little bit. The genesis for this was I was a CRO for a company. Our BDRs were trained on BANT. We would record the calls, right? And I was on a plane listening to a call with a prospect. Prospect said to my BDR, "Are you banting me?" I was like, "Whoa, that's never heard somebody say that before."
Wow.
And the tone of the call had changed. Like the prospect had gotten very defensive.
Huh.
So I started listening to other calls, not just that BDR, other
Hmm.
BDRs. And I could hear a repeating pattern. Once we got into the BANT questions, budget authority, need, timing, the prospect clammed up. They sensed what was happening and they didn't want to talk anymore.
Wow. It
So
makes
the
sense. Yeah, you get into
yeah,
money, people start changing.
yeah. So the questions that we're asking, it's a conversation, and it's not a trick, by the way. We're not trying to trick anybody. We want to make sure that we're actually able to help someone. It's really that simple. And this goes back to my earliest days of selling. I didn't want to go. I sold payroll
Hmm.
services for EDP, and I was
Uh,
like in Manchester, New Hampshire, selling to restaurants and manufacturers. These guys didn't have time to waste with me. They either needed a payroll service or they didn't.
yeah.
So I didn't want to waste time either.
Hmm.
So the faster I could diagnose that with them, the better for both of us. And that's not how salespeople have been trained for the last many years.
No, everything's identified the pain point, dig into it and move from there.
And pain is a very nebulous thing. Like I said, you can get yourself fooled by pain.
Hmm.
I'll tell you, we had one where one of my clients, and we were trying to sell to a family-owned business in New Orleans, and we were like, I think we were somewhere like $40,000 a year, and the offset was $500,000. So it's like that's a no-brainer deal, right?
Hmm.
You give me 40, I'm giving you back 500. Not to
Yeah.
them. They're like, no, you understand. This is like that problem will still exist for us in a different way. It doesn't actually go away. It's just kind of you're moving the problem somewhere else. It doesn't totally solve it, but
Hmm.
I'm going to give you $40,000, which I could also spend to buy a boat. Like, so you got to go back, back to the qualification. And then
Yeah.
when we went back to the qualification, we found out there was no catalyst. There was pain, but there was
Hmm.
no reason for them to make a change. There was no timeline, so there wasn't really a project.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. It interesting, especially within the space. that you're targeting, how it can change when the core of it stays the same. You need a catalyst, and then it's identifying these other factors that you're bringing up. That's interesting.
Yeah, well, I'll throw a different way at
Hmm.
thinking about it. If you were in the market to buy a car and you pulled into a BMW dealership in a 2001 Honda Accord, you hopped out in your cutoff jeans and a Def Leppard concert T-shirt,
I'm gonna get a
walked,
good deal.
walked into the dealership and said, "Hey, I want to drive that M5 over there for $90,000." Did they just throw you the fob and say, "Yeah, Dad, I'll take it. Yeah, let us know what you think."
Mhm.
So they're going to ask you a couple of questions, partly because of the way, yes, they're going to judge you. Sorry, yep, they are going to, but they also want to make sure that, hey, can this guy actually buy a $90,000 car? Does he have a driver's license? Right? They ask for your license.
Yeah, that's how I would show up to buy a $90,000 car because I'm trying to act like I have no money.
Right. Yeah. But it's like somehow or another we think it's different when we're selling $500,000 software system or whatever it is we're selling. It's the same thing. We have to determine, can this person actually buy from me?
Yeah, qualify, 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 qualify.
You can't get your time back. Oh, Mike, I'm only spending it. I know it's not really qualified, but I'm just spending 5 minutes on it.
It's
Okay, well,
5 minutes too long.
yeah, that's 5 minutes you can't spend on something. Go find something qualified.
Wow, I know it's not qualified, but I'm still gonna waste time on it.
Yep.
What what causes a salesperson to want to do that?
Lack of pipeline. So they don't have enough pipeline. So they think that I will try to turn something that's not qualified or borderline qualified into a qualified opportunity.
Can't
And
do
if I
that.
keep working at it, that will happen. And all that's happening is you just continue to layer stuff on
Yeah.
instead of trying to understand, all right, is there actually a problem here, which is the discovery phase?
Hmm.
Is there a problem here that I can solve? Is that problem, is there enough financial pain or enough financial merit to continue the conversation? If if I can solve the problem, but I'm $100,000 and the financial offset is 200,000 or even
Mm.
300,000, probably not getting a deal done. That's
Mm.
not enough to compel the
Yeah.
business to change. So you want to understand what the as much about the problem, the financial components as you possibly can.
Hmm.
Also, the other part of doing discovery is that it helps you and your prospect anchor on their needs so that when a competitor comes in, because there's going to be a competitor in every deal, if they try to change the criteria or discredit you, you have a better sense
Hmm.
that that's happening. You earn the trust of
Right.
of the buyer.
Which is a big part of it. If they don't trust you, they won't buy from you.
Yes, that's exactly it. It's interesting the studies that have been done. We used to think that people wouldn't buy from you, will buy from you if they like you. That's not true.
Hmm.
People will buy somebody from somebody that they don't like.
Yeah.
They won't buy from somebody they don't trust.
Hmm. Yeah. That's pretty big because
Yeah,
they're very different, right?
very.
Because I can't stand that guy, but he's an expert in the field and he's the one who's going to make the
Yeah,
change in the business.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like, hey, listen, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I know that,
Uh,
but I also know that nobody walks away from a conversation and says, I don't think Mulfelder was being straight with me.
hmm. Yeah.
Okay, I'll trade that. That works for me.
That's good. Yeah. I think it's a fair trade because they know what they're getting. No
And if
smoke
it's
and mirrors.
not going to fit, this doesn't fit.
Awesome. Well, awesome. Our time hit 30. I appreciate you taking the
Thank you.
time. We'll get
Likewise.
this out and then yeah, I'll let you know.
All right.